Good afternoon, welcome. We'll call the meeting to order. This is the Marion City Council work session for Tuesday, July 19th, 2016. What do we have first? Finance?
I'm here mainly to talk about merchant credit card services. Just as a brief overview, right now we actually do accept credit cards at the building department, the public services department, the library department, and both parks facilities. As part of the overall ERP software project, we bought the eSuite, which would allow us to take payments online. However, to do so, we would need an agreement with a vendor that does this type of thing. So there were actually two vendors that we looked at. One was AMS. In order for it to work with the software, they have to be able to work with what is called bridge pay. It's basically the third party that converts the credit card information into what our software is able to read to pull it in so that it's completely integrated. And we were told by New World that AMS was one of the providers that already work with BridgePay. So we, of course, got a quote from them, and then we reached out to Payment Service Network, who actually did not work with BridgePay before, but has gone out, got an agreement with BridgePay, and also gave us a quote. And comparing the two quotes, PSN was a lot lower than AMS. In fact, we would actually be saving money on the Wells Fargo For Sure machine. We actually have a Wells Fargo machine in the building department, and the rest are currently Farmers State Bank. In comparison to the Farmers State Bank, PSN, it's really hard to compare rates because there's always the discount rate and then the rate charged by Visa, and then there's some do a flat fee, some are just percentage. But either way, there is what's called a PCI compliance fee, and Farmers State Bank right now we're paying $10 per month per merchant credit card account, so that's $30 per month. With the PSN agreement, that is actually just a flat fee for all merchant credit card services at $89.99 a year. So there's a significant savings there in comparison to what we're paying. So where I'm going with this is we would like to enter into this agreement with PSN to provide our merchant credit card services. We'd get rid of the Wells Fargo, we'd get rid of the Farmers State Bank, and they'd all fall under one umbrella, and then all of it's going to go to the same bank account. And then there were a couple other discussion points that I wanted to add. Right now, the eSuite just comes with the ability to pay with a credit card or debit card. One question you might ask is, what about e-check? David Batterman from PSN did actually ask BridgePay, because BridgePay is the one that handles the credit cards, if that was a capability. And it actually is a capability, but does not come with our package. So as I explained in your memo, the cost is somewhere between $10,000 and $15,000 one time to add the capability. I would like direction on whether you would like us to pursue that or not pursue that. I would figure out what the actual cost is and bring that back to council for further review if that's something you want to add. Just going along with that, a typical $100 payment is going to have an average cost of about $1.91 when processed via a debit or credit card. That same payment processed as an e-check item is only 40 cents. It saves about $1.50 each $100 payment. I can't really give you an analysis of how many people would actually pay with e-check, and I don't think a lot of our fees are actually over $100. But that's something I need you to consider. And also right now, we currently do not accept American Express. We have had citizens come in and ask to use their American Express, but their fees are a little bit higher, and that would be another discussion point I would like council's input on. I also did provide you with the service agreement. It should be up on the counter if you haven't already grabbed it. I did receive that right after Tracy had the packets put together, so open for any questions.
Have you contacted farmers about seeing if they would match or beat the rates that this other company was?
I'll say the thing with doing that is you're basically then asking the bank to, like I said, enter an agreement with BridgePay, and the advantage of going with an entity like PSN is when you think long term, there are a lot of fees that we receive through other areas. For instance, we receive parks revenue through Cogran, through PayPal. That's something we can look at in the future. PSN has their own website that we could also utilize. Like right now, we're going to use the e-suites for anything that's integrated into our financial software. But there's a lot more capability there that we could be utilizing for other areas. Whereas if you go with Farmer State Bank, you don't have that built-in technology that's already there. So I guess my answer is no, I did not go to Farmer State Bank and ask them if they would get an agreement with BridgePay.
How secure is this system?
Okay, I will add in the memo, I had talked to Terrell about when we receive payments over the counter, currently those are actually done through phone line. Terrell has made the recommendation that we stay with the phone line approach, whereas if you were to get like a fully integrated, it would actually go through the data security, which is through the network. And so that part is going to stay super secure because it's through phone line and not through the internet. PSN is, I can give you more information on them. I'm pretty positive they are secure. I can give you a list of cities that actually use them.
Well, what I want to know is, is it a system that's hackable so that you are putting people's accounts at risk?
I mean, for instance, here's a list of cities that actually use PSN currently. Clear Lake, Earlham, Sergeant Bluff, Mason City, Adair, Central City, Center Point, Spencer, Algona, Atlantic, Milford, Independence, the list goes on and on.
Have you checked with any of those as to any difficulties that have arisen?
I have not.
They're probably hackable because anything's hackable.
Well,
Target gets hacked.
Well, having been hacked on 2 credit cards, I'm very.
I was recently too.
Usually they hack the database, that's what they hack, and not the credit card transaction.
Yeah, they did. Well, yeah, because
That's what so if we're only passing that on to, if the credit card reader phones the credit card company, they would have to hack the credit card company, not the city.
okay. Well, as long as
I was going to say, and that third-party BridgePay actually takes the credit card information, encrypts it, and puts it into what's called a token, and then submits the information from there.
128-bit
this
encryption.
is not a problem as far as you're concerned.
As far as I'm concerned, I passed it through Terrell in the IT department, and I'm not an expert in security, so.
Okay. Well, I don't want to send a couple of $10,000 projects to Nigeria.
Hey, we could use a bridge. Can we have your card?
Let's not get greedy.
What's your sense on the e-check? Is that something that people want, or is it?
Right now, because we don't offer anything online as far as what we receive in finance, I really don't know.
And it's a one-time payment, you said?
One-time payment between
the
10 and
capability to-
15,000, and then you'd have the capability added to the website for years to come.
I mean, I wonder, is that something we put in the survey or something to see if people want that capability? Or?
And I did ask, it is something that could be added later at any time.
Yeah, I
just need to know whether
I wonder
we
if
should.
we ask people in the citizen survey if they want that capability.
I don't know if it's that big of a deal because most people use debit credit cards these days and not checks.
I was going to say, the point there
But they
is
use
if
that,
they
yeah.
would use the e-check, you would be saving money,
Saving the city money.
saving the city money,
Well,
Uh,
after 10,000
per
payments,
transaction.
approximately.
approximately $1.50 per $100 transaction.
Todd, do you have a sense
That's
on
not
the water
10,000
utility
payments,
customers,
so.
how many of them use ACH?
Growing, and we are waiting for the city to move forward with their selection to partner up with that partner to use it.
That's an automatic withdrawal directly from an account that's set up one time, and then it just takes them out for you. I would think that would be the similar demographic who would use an e-check, the ones that we have signed up that are
Yeah.
using ACH right now.
Okay, but I didn't hear what Mr. Stegerwald said. So would you
Get the microphone, Todd.
please come forward?
Thanks.
So the PSN, is that only Visa? That would be the only one that we would accept?
Payment Service Network, now you'd be taking Visa, MasterCard, and Discover.
Okay, so just those
That's the
three.
American Express that I need your guidance on whether you would like us to accept it or not, because we currently do not.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Council. With the Marion Water Department, we're also going through the utility services agreement there with New World. We'll be accepting credit card, possibly these e-checks as well. We're researching different vendors. We're probably going to piggytail back on the city's vendor that they choose. Let them be the guinea pig first, because our software will be up and running later after their other components are going forth. There's a great demand for it. We get called all the time. Why do we have to pay $3.95 for every credit card transaction? That's our third party for that compliance factor. Third party vendor takes the credit card payments for us. But we will in the future be absorbing that fee for the customers out there. But it is a demand. ACH, I bet you there's 30 to 40% of our customers are probably the ACH. Just pay it, and that goes right through their vendor.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is it more advantageous for the water department financially to have it deducted directly or do it by credit card?
Either way would be great. We'd love to get paid, period. They're both seamless. We don't have to open up envelopes. It's a time saver on either end. Checks lost in the mail or that got dropped or they can't get here on time. Doing it over the computer, it'd be a lot simpler, and we can check verification right away that they've paid, so we won't have to shut them off.
I think that would be totally different circumstances because it's a monthly payment where it's coming out of the checking account, where this would be someone stops in to pay for a permit, or I think it's
Correct.
completely different. It wouldn't be.
We do have walk-ins to buy certain things, and they come in and set up their deposit account, so we would be taking some of those first-time customers that way. But after that, there's bi-monthly for residential, and commercial businesses are on a monthly payment, so they can pretty much schedule that in there.
My guess is
That
where
makes
we
sense
would
for
see
water
it
department.
show up most often would probably be on the building permit side, where you have contractors that may come in and pull 50 permits per year, but some of those permits on a big project could be anywhere from 400 to into the tens of thousands of dollars, and that percentage starts to get pretty big when you're talking about that number per $100. So if we're going to see people using e-checks, I would think that would be where it would show up.
But would a contractor use an e-check versus a credit card, or do they typically write checks?
Like I say, the building department right now, most of their revenues are actually taken in through credit card. I'll have like maybe 4 checks and 17 credit card transactions come through on a day.
Okay.
And Terrell, our IT manager, is here to address some of the security questions that you may have about this.
Thanks,
Do
Ty.
we get card terminals for those fees?
So the card terminals, actually PSN offers up to 10 terminals free of charge, which is also a significant savings. Credit card machines are between $400 and $600. Farmer State Bank actually just rolled out a new where you actually lease the credit card machine, so you'd be leasing it for I think it's 2 or 3 years.
Say it again at the very front. You said it's how much per?
Per credit card terminal?
No, you said we got how many terminals?
Up to 10.
Up to
So
10.
right now we currently have 2 at parks, 1 at library, 1 at public service, 1 up in building, and I would like to add 1 in finance because we don't have one, and we are constantly getting asked, can I pay with credit card?
Okay,
And
thank
she
you.
feels lonely.
Huh?
And she feels lonely.
So up to 10 would cover us. We'd have- yeah.
Mhm.
So who had the question on security? I think Mary Lou.
Yeah, I did.
Do you want-
Just wondering how secure this was insofar as getting hacked and
Yeah, that was my big concern too. So we took a look at what it would take to put those on our network, and I said, I don't think that's a good idea. So the alternative to that is use a phone line. And if you use a phone line, it takes a huge amount of risk off of us to do that. So it's just basically a dedicated, standard, old-fashioned analog phone line that all the communication goes through. So therefore, you don't have that risk of a hacker, malware, trying to grab a hold of the data in transit.
so you're satisfied that this would be okay.
Yep, very much so.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. So, what, is there some, will there be something on our agenda on Thursday for approval?
Thursday, I would like to be able to approve this agreement. It takes them approximately 4 to 6 weeks to get this all set up.
Approving this agreement?
Yes. And Don actually has reviewed that agreement, but our buildings permit software is supposed to be going live September 6th, the week of September 6th. And it would be ideal to have the new credit card machines up by then so that all of our revenues are entering the same bank account. Otherwise, the building department would have to make sure they override cash account for every credit card transaction. So there's a lot of complexity.
And this doesn't currently include anything on e-checks?
No.
So we can, but it can be added at any time?
It can be added later, correct. So you want me to go ahead and look into what the actual cost would be?
Sure.
Yes. And then the American Express cards, is that something you guys would like to accept? Not accept?
I don't do American Express.
I mean, I guess what's the demand from the customer?
I have had 2, and I don't remember if they were subdivision. They were definitely some type of a developer that had requested to pay with an American Express card, and I think it was just simply because he wanted the rewards. He did have another credit card that he could use.
It's not a big volume of people saying, why don't you have this? Okay. And it costs more.
It does cost slightly more.
I guess I don't see a need to do it.
I have another
Most
question.
people have
I have
2
a
credit
question
cards.
for finance. A while back, Creative Crafts was promised a rebate, and they still have not received it. And it's been quite some time since they should have been paid. Do you know anything about that?
I do not know why it hasn't been paid. I'll let Lon, if he knows anything.
Yeah, that one's on my desk. I just haven't gotten to it, but I've got to get that one finished up.
Yeah, because he said that you'd promised him 3 weeks ago, and he still hasn't seen anything, so. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions on this issue? Okay, so we'll have a resolution to vote on Thursday, so everybody knows it's coming. Thank you. Anything else on the finance agenda? Anybody have questions on? Public service, it looks like we have a couple discussions we'll have on Thursday.
I
Three.
have a question.
Actually, Your Honor, that's supposed to be starred, all of those. We got some time
So
set
are you going
aside.
to talk to us tonight?
I'd like to.
Okay.
Well, this additional fees, Mr. Miller,
We're coming up. I'll talk.
oh, okay, good. Uh-huh. He reads my mind.
So all 4 items?
I'm starless. They're
Up.
supposed to be starred.
All 4 items?
Yeah, we got time set aside there.
Okay.
Oh,
Ooh,
yeah,
I like that
an
picture.
apple.
That was cool.
Where was that?
I missed it.
Fly rod.
Yellowstone.
Yellowstone, nice.
Yellowstone. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Yeah, they were supposed to be starred, but a couple of things that we needed to discuss, and we were here a couple of weeks ago to discuss this, was the solid waste fees for this next fiscal year. We did have a discussion regarding a recycling services agreement with the solid waste agency, and that's something we're going to have to keep an eye on, because as of right now, they have not approved their contract with Republic Services. So we do have to keep an eye on that, and we may have to revisit solid waste fees here in mid-year. No promises, but we did talk about this with the Public Service Commission, and just a quick review, if this will work. There's our fees. Right now, we're programmed at $14 per month. Those are solid waste fees. When you compare them to the similar services through the state of Iowa, very competitive, and we are proud of that. We did go through that. The biggest costs that we incur, obviously, are our curbside collections. That's the driver going out, collecting the solid waste, recycling at the curb, the yard waste. That's our biggest cost. One of the things we wanted to look at this year was the reduced senior citizen rate. Last year we programmed that at $10.50, but as you can see, our cost to go out and collect solid waste for the driver to go out in that truck is around $10.91, if not more. So the Public Services Board reviewed that. They are recommending an increase to that. However, they wanted me to remind the City Council that under state code, they feel that this is a discriminatory practice. So if the council wants to maintain that senior discount rate, that is fine. However, under state code, they feel that this is discriminatory. They would rather see a rate based upon economic disadvantage rather than age. Okay, they just wanted me to bring that forward to council. However, at a minimum, they are requesting fees to be raised to $14.25. That's basically to offset some of the increases we're going to see with recycling. We're going to get a credit from the Solid Waste Agency. However, our fees are still increasing. We're going from $20 a ton to tip there to around $35, okay? And that's not set in stone. We're letting the council know that right now. Nothing's guaranteed. So that's the increase that we are recommending right now. And we are recommending taking the senior discount rate at a minimum to 11. That's just to cover our costs to go out and collect the solid waste. Okay, so that's the recommendations from our Public Services Board as well as our staff. So any questions on those?
What age is the senior discount?
65. Everyone in the household has to be 65 or older to receive the discount.
Did the board talk about if there were people, maybe low income?
We would rather base it on income level.
How would you do that then? Do you have a form that?
Yeah, actually, the state of Iowa outlines that pretty well. I know the water department, I think, Todd, you guys do that? We would probably just go off the water board and what they do.
Okay.
And therefore it's uniform across all utility rates in the city. That's what they would rather see.
And then what do they pay then when they?
Right now, $10.50.
So if low income wanted?
Low income pays the full fare.
Okay.
So when we look, if the council wanted to give direction on changing this, we could look at what that rate could be. But we're not going to look at it unless we have direction. Obviously, we're not going to do that.
And that wouldn't violate whatever you put up there?
Good point. I think there's some research that has to go into this.
I'm not against it, I'm just...
Yeah,
But
that's what it says. I mean, that's...
Ready?
And the thing is, I don't think anybody's ever challenged this. No one's going to take a city to court and say, hey, you're being discriminatory in this practice. I don't know that. That's something for the city attorney to answer. But, we've been through this, and we're not trying to pick on anybody or do anything, but we know there's people that probably need help in the city that are not getting it.
So the senior rate would go to $11?
Right, that's what we're recommending.
Okay, and not economically deprived or whatever.
Right now, we don't have a program for that.
Okay, so when all my friends who are over 65 come and say, what's going on, I can say, well, at least you're not paying the full amount.
Right.
Thank you.
So you're going to discount $14.25 to $11 under this proposed ordinance.
Are they guaranteeing the fees for that 16 to 17 year?
We executed that affidavit, all right, and it was an affidavit, but I do know that they have not signed the contract with Republic Services for recycling. We have reached out to Republic to see what they might do for the city of Marion. So this could change.
They like to compare us to other cities and what's being charged, but how many of those cities is the dump blocking its growth and keeping us from expanding as they are out here? And they need to consider that, and they need to pledge a solid amount for a 12-month period before we sign anything, because they cannot be trusted, in my opinion.
You want me to let them know that, or?
Well, I think she knows that. Yeah, sure,
Yeah.
I don't care.
Okay. So, and considering the solid waste fees, that's what we're recommending for this next fiscal year. So,
What if they were to increase, though?
then we'll be back to talk.
Okay.
So, and that may happen. We're just, with what Republic is proposing, what the Solid Waste Agency is proposing, that all could change. We don't have much control at this point.
If you went to an income-based fee schedule, you still would get a lot of the seniors, I think, probably, you know.
Yeah, I would think so.
Oh, is it?
And I can get more information if the council wanted me to sit down with Todd with the water department, see how theirs worked, and yeah, if someone's on a fixed income, you would think they would qualify.
That seems to make more sense, I think.
Totally.
Wait till you get old, then tell me.
There are probably some people that are getting that rate that probably don't need it. And there are
Right,
people
so, I
that
mean,
are,
if you went to income-based, then the seniors that need it would get it, and also the rest of the people who need the break would get it.
that's how the board would like to see this at some point. Look, so if the council wanted to direct me to do so, we definitely look into it. I can come back to the council and provide information on that. But they feel, I also feel that myself. I think that would be more consistent as what other cities are doing as well.
That'd be interesting to see what that would look like.
I agree. Okay. Be happy to. Okay. Any other questions on the fees? Okay. Next item they have down there, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. Come back to this. A discussion regarding sign replacement and reflectivity. This is something that you need a little direction on council, but first, give you some background. Back in actually 2007, the Federal Highway Administration adopted new reflectivity standards. And reflectivity has everything to do with the sign, being able to see it at night, its reflective values. And in June 2014, they issued a final ruling in terms of minimum threshold for reflectivity levels. And from that, public service, we had to adopt a whole new sign program. It's very aggressive. Okay, just this last year, I think our budget for signs was quadrupled. Can't get around that. All right, it's just new requirements by the FHA. And so what they initially wanted us to do back in 2012 is essentially replace every single sign in town by 2015. Okay, that was their initial ruling. So all these regulatory signs, back in 2012, they said you got to replace all of these. They have to meet minimum reflective levels. All right, and so the cities didn't really go with that. It was going to create an economic burden. And so they rescinded that guidance, okay? And so they said, okay, you have to go by these minimum reflective levels. You have to have a sign program in place, and you have to focus on what they call regulatory signs. These are regulatory signs here. These are what enforce the traffic codes within municipalities, state highways, things of that nature. Also, what they said, you need to start replacing these overhead street markers, and those have to do with the highway signs. They have to do with what we got, these big mast arm markers. And right now, we have a number of these that have to be replaced. We have them programmed to get replaced. One of the things we reached out to the branding committee is whether or not we want to include any type of logos on that. And I sat down with Jill from the chamber and Amber. Sound like we had a good idea on what to do. Either we'll keep a space for them or put the logo on them. We don't know what we're going to do yet. But we don't want to be in a position where we're putting them up twice. Okay? And so we're sitting down and saying, hey, let's get this going because I have to get these done here soon and then figure out how that's going to look.
Yeah.
Sounds like you had a question.
Well, I mean, it just
Yeah.
would make sense if you're
and
going
that's what
through
we're
it.
trying to go.
Might as well do it all at the same time.
All at once because I don't
Unless
think you
it's-
want to be the city that puts them up twice. So we don't want to put up new ones and then take them down and put up other ones. So that's
Right.
what we're trying to figure out. So we're kind of pushing them to get us direction there. So, but with that, we have other compliances we have to meet. One of those is the regulatory signs, but the biggest problem we're running into is the central business district. Okay, I did talk to Randy about this a little bit, but we have a lot of signs down in the central business district that are due for a sign change out. And we have I don't say intentionally put them off, but what we're going to need is some direction from council as to whether you really want us to replace all of those signs, or do you want to go back to maybe the traffic advisory committee and get some guidance of whether or not we really want that many signs in the uptown. What I'm asking to do is look at the parking regulations, look at all the regulations that we have out there, and come up with a good signage plan where we can reduce the sign clutter. So that's one of the things I want to talk to the council about, get some guidance here, because we have a lot of signs in the downtown that we have programmed to replace as soon as last year, but we held off because we need some direction on whether or not you really want to have those regulations in place uptown. There's some old ones like no truck parking, there's no skateboarding signs. As long as there's legislation or resolution attached to it, we have to put them back up there. But if we look at this again, clean up maybe some of the restrictions, we can make it look pretty nice up there and minimize the amount of signs.
So you're saying if we change our ordinances?
No, I think we have to review exactly what you want up there. Because right now we have some very old resolutions, like no truck parking. Don't know if that applies anymore. That's about 20 years old. And we have no skateboarding. Whether or not we really want to maintain that up there, that's another sign I have to put up there. But if the council wants me to, we'll go ahead and replace it. But I think it's time that we...
Who will do that? Who will look at
the traffic advisory committee.
Okay.
Yep.
Question.
Go ahead.
Okay, now some of these signs have, 3 and 4 and 5 signs on a pole.
Right.
And when you're driving by and you're faced with all these signs, there's no way you're gonna.
Right.
Would it be more practical to have more posts? I don't know. And fewer signs per post?
I think it's more practical to, a lot of those parking restrictions, a lot of those signs up there are very old. I think it's more practical to review what we need to do in the downtown right now, rather than if we go and replace all those signs in the downtown, it's going to cost some money. And I think before we do that, maybe review what should be regulated up there, and let's maybe make it a goal to clean it up, I think. And so that's really, before we did anything, before we change anything out, we want to bring this to council, get some direction. It's about time to review what's been up there for the last 20 years.
I'd like to see, and I've talked to Jill and I've also talked with you, I'd like to see positive signs. Yes, park here for 2 hours. Instead of no, 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 no. I'd like to have you consider anyway, figuring out how to make positive statements for downtown or uptown, whichever you prefer to call it, instead of negative.
Yeah, and that kind of came out of the branding discussion, and maybe work with the brand leadership team and Amanda and whoever is working with that to see where that can be, if it's possible in some places to actually implement some of that, because it does make a statement about your community.
I would still like to see no bicycles and skateboarding on sidewalks after near collisions.
Unless they're trails.
And that's fine. That's something that can be added. But right now, I really need to pin down the regulatory signs up there. Whether or not you guys want to maintain this and we'll replace them, or
well, we're going to be changing the whole uptown. That'd be,
right.
As we develop 7th, and what we're going to be doing up there is all new, and that to me would be the time to think about doing that.
And I'm happy to hold off.
So you
now or then?
You said TAC would actually look at the.
We would look at regulatory signs,
right,
like the parking restrictions, and make.
That's always a good idea to be reviewing those things, right?
Yep.
So why can't we do that? I mean, is that something that can be done within a reasonable time frame, and we can at least be looking at that?
I'm just going to, just from the standpoint of uptown and the way it looks and the feel, the aesthetics, I think there's been several instances where the city's been kind of ribbed a little bit or ridiculed, maybe even, to saying, why are there 10 signs on this pole? And I think it's time that if we can go through and clean them up, and then if we need to address some of it, that's fine. But if you think about all the things that we're putting off because we're waiting for the streetscape, you know, even if it's 2 years, 4 years, or 5 years, we can't just, I just don't think that we need to keep ignoring it until that point in time, because I think we're damaging our image by kind of ignoring that. I would rather see us move forward quickly to address some of those. I mean, when you got signs that have rust flowing from bolt to bolt, it just doesn't make our uptown look good. And
Might be the start of streetcape though, because, you know, because you're, gate, you're changing the thing, and I think we have way too many. I agree completely.
Yeah, so that's, I guess, I sit on the Main Street board. This was a discussion at noon over the lunch hour. So I think it would behoove us to move forward with something to get rid of some of the signs, or at least bring back a plan to the council and say, listen, we looked at all the signs. We're planning to take all of these down. We're going to keep these. These are questions. So.
Has no one come out with a spray-on reflective for those other signs you talked about first?
No, this is those type of signs don't even work now. It's a whole new type of sign system, reflectivity system.
I wondered.
They're expensive, and therefore that's why I want to come to council and say, hey, let's look at this. If you want us to replace the signs, okay. When you talk about regulatory signs, there's minimal room to really reduce the amount of signage up there. Therefore, I think it's appropriate to have these reviewed. And
review the regulations.
Yes, and ideally to.
So are you going to do that?
Yeah, so if I could put a motion on the agenda for Thursday, directing TAC to review that. And then we can bring it back.
Anybody opposed to that? It makes sense.
We would want to make sure that there is an interest, because my guys are going to have to go out and inventory these first, which is going to be, I mean, we're not going to be able to do that in construction season, but within a period of time, we'll end up with that duty. Well, maybe we can work it together, but overall we need to do that, and then we need to make sure, you know, counts and locations and come up with a recommendation, which TAC can do. We just want to make sure that there's some support, and I think that's what Ryan's trying to find, make sure there's an interest in council in doing something up there. Because we don't want to go do all this and say, no, just replace them all.
Conceptually, I'd like to go through and just erase them all and start from scratch because of some of these things, because our city has changed, whether it's the skateboarding or, you know, I'm so sick of seeing these signs that say 2-hour parking and Monday through Friday, 15-minute loading zone right below it. It's ridiculous, and it's very unappealing. So I am total support that we need to send that to TAC. We need to get moving on this, because it's all changing. The streetscape's changing, you know, and we'll get some of those recommendations back as to, is there no overnight parking? Is there still 2-hour parking? I know there are several committees within the city with business leaders and business owners as to, you know, what would they like to see uptown. You know, we don't want to restrict somebody 1 second, but yet, you know, we can't have overnight parking, which obstructs loading trucks in the morning at 6 o'clock the next morning. So it would be kind of nice to start with a clean slate and build it back and say, what do we want? You know, what is our snow route? What is our emergency routes? Things of that nature. So I'm totally in support of that.
The only thing I would add is that Marion has a history, and we're talking about parking, and especially parking in the uptown, of making sure that we involve the businesses. So while it's something that we can refer over to TAC, I think it would be well met for us to do some outreach with some help from Uptown Marion and the Chamber and some of the other various boards and commissions to say, okay, here's what we're thinking, and get some feedback on it, because I suspect, you know, what I've seen happen is that every one of those signs has a constituency behind it. Now, some of them may no longer exist, and if that's the case, they can probably go away. But it's worth checking that out so that we don't end up with a bunch of people at the city council saying, well, why didn't I know about this? Or, you know, you shouldn't be doing this.
2 comments is, one is, yeah, we would probably go in and void all the past legislation and start over again. That would be the best way to do it. The second thing is to Lon's comment, is that all those variations and parking lengths of time all evolved from a committee from the uptown. And there's an interest in 2-hour here, 4-hour here, 6-hour here, 8 hours here, whatever. if we can get that somewhat standardized so that it's 4 hour everywhere or something, we'd be a lot less signage involved. So we need to keep that in mind as we move forward, is that the more we can make it a standard length of time or whatever, we can just post it in a few places and say every place is 4 hour or something. So.
Example, in front of 610 10th Street, about 10 years ago, I got a parking ticket at 3 in the morning. And the sign's right there. It says no parking 2 to 6 a.m. Why? I don't know. Because they didn't want me to park there, I guess. Maybe they want to clean the streets. I have no idea.
It was partly both of those
Yeah,
things.
it's one. But the sign's there. I always park there. Finally, they gave me a ticket. So.
There's no deadline for this, right? I mean, they're...
No, this is something we've held off because this is discussion's probably overdue. Someone had to kick it in, so we're obviously going to hold off on doing anything till we get guidance from the council from TAC.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, if engineering, is there a slower time that you can do this? Are you too busy right now to?
Yeah, we wouldn't be able to now, but we could in a couple of months. So.
Yeah, maybe later. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have interns or summer help?
We have summer help, but they're scheduled through the summer.
Because that would be, the ideal people to go out and do an inventory.
It would, but we have programs that they do every summer.
Okay.
We could do it.
I would think that would be something where some of our uptown committees or business owners with an interest in this probably would be willing to help.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add one thing, not to steal
No, go ahead.
I guess speaking on behalf of the brand leadership team, we've already completed an inventory of all the signs, and I think have offered our services to help with that. I think the group in our conversations would kind of recommend what you had suggested. Our fear, and I think we acknowledge that some of the signage that exists in Uptown Marion right now is probably the poster child of some of Roger Brooks' presentations as he's moved on to future communities. He said, look what I found here. And it's kind of the classic example of just what happens when things are not paid attention to for a longer period of time. So I don't think I'm speaking out of turn in offering, because we've already helped to assist to, I think, get to this point, that we'd be happy to assist helping further, but we recognize that you can't just start tearing signs down. So I guess on behalf of that group, we want you to be aware we've already helped to do some of it and would be willing to help do that, knowing that staff is extremely busy already. But it's time, because it's a visual bad thing for the community. So
there you go. So can we engage their assistance?
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll get together with Nick and Ryan and pull together a group.
Yeah, them and the Uptown organization is another natural, I think, that to help.
So I'll put a motion on there for Thursday.
Okay.
We'll go to TAC and then get this resolved. Okay?
Ryan,
All right.
does the new street signs, the black and white ones, do they meet that?
Yep.
Okay, good.
They do. We made sure of that because we knew that was coming up. One last item, discussion regarding alternative fueling infrastructure within the eco-industrial park. We've had some recent developments with this. Just so the council can see, we do have some preliminary site planning completed. We have completed acquiring the parcels for the development. And I know it's hard to see on here. See if I can get my cursor doesn't really work. But this was a preliminary that was approved by our Public Services Board at the last meeting. And off of 44th Street, we acquired those two parcels. One parcel in particular was to site a fueling station, because as the council knows, we are looking at moving forward with alternative fuel. Since then, we did come to terms with an agreement with the Lynn County Co-op. The Lynn County Co-op is looking to redo their infrastructure in their current location. We sat down, had some meetings, and we've executed a letter of intent with them to go ahead and site them within where we designated the fueling station to be. So really what we're looking at is a cooperative development, public-private partnership to site them to run the facility, but then it would also allow us to kind of reap the rewards of some of the projects that we're doing. On site, we're looking at obviously doing compressed natural gas, but now this will be open to the public as well, not just for use within our city's fleet, as well as we're looking at some very interesting technologies. Virtual pipeline is one. We have some interesting utilities that have reached out to us wanting to do this. Virtual pipeline is essentially filling up these big tanker trucks of natural gas and delivering them to other locations throughout the state or the region. And so we have an agreement in place with a utility that will allow us to do that. So this is actually a very exciting project, and we'll be back to the council here probably in another month to go over this. But at the location, we're looking at a very large fueling station, not just to do alternative fuels, but all conventional fuels, gasoline, diesel, you name it, it's going to be at that location. With that, we're also looking at designs to almost build more of a truck stop, a very large system that would allow for larger fleet customers to fuel. That's the co-op's objective, is that we really in Marion, there's no good place to fuel for a fleet. Semis or even our fleet, it's very difficult to go down there. And so that's one of the things we're looking at. And so we have had some preliminary design work done by our consultants, and so that's kind of the direction we're going. This is going to be a big thing for us because now we're looking at a nice partnership. We're going to have a low-cost alternative to fuel. The entire city will get rewarded on that. Additionally, citizens will be able to access that, and then we're going to do some other things that allow us to generate some revenue. So any questions on that? I kind of want to give the council update on the direction we're going. No?
But you're still looking at maybe the garbage trucks and your trucks, your vehicles switching over then?
Yeah.
So the only issue then is storage with a vehicle that has natural gas.
Right, and that's why we're looking at the development, a new facility. When we come back, we're going to show you how this ties into that facility, because it's essentially the same. It's essentially the same project. It's an energy services project.
Yeah.
And we'll come back, and so they're really linked together. The amount of savings we're going to realize is going to offset most of our debt service for a facility. So we're not too concerned about that. That's a huge cost savings for us.
Yeah.
So we'll be back more of a formal presentation, but I just want to update the council because they've already went to the board of directors of the co-op. After that, everybody starts talking. And so they've kind of agreed to go ahead and go down this road with us.
What kind of timeline? I mean, I feel like, we keep hearing plans and ideas, but we never actually get somewhere.
This is something
is this something
we're going to be back with civil engineering. We have to annex it. Probably next spring we'll be breaking ground on this. So it takes some time to design that. So
it's actually going to happen.
Oh, yeah. You'll probably see everything happen at once. That's what we're looking at. So, but just keeping the council updated. This is not an easy project by no means. It's very complex. So.
Any other questions?
If you got any concerns, Nick, let me know.
Okay.
Be happy to sit down with you.
Okay. Any other questions?
All right.
Thanks.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Nothing for police and fire. Parks. Engineering.
Thank you, Your Honor. Number 4 under engineering has to do with the discussion regarding non-regulatory signs in the street right-of-way. Following last meeting's concerns cited by Pam Bennis out on Windermere Way, we thought it was a good time to start a conversation on non-regulatory signs in the right-of-way and what's going on now and where we should be going. It seems like this is a growing problem. Staff has, over the last couple of years, kind of cited an informal means of picking up signs when they have time, they have opportunity. They pick up the ones that are probably more of a nuisance, the ones that are less, we probably don't really address so much. But there are a few staff that do it a little bit more than others. I think there's an impression of not knowing whether there's support from council to do that or not, and how far we can really go before we lose that support, or whether we really irritate the public without formal direction. So what we're here tonight, I guess today, is to find out what direction council wants to take and how severe we want to be. The current code 176.31 allows for no sign or sign structures to be placed in the street right-of-way or highway other than official traffic or street signs. So any other street than that is in violation of our code. Some of them cause severe distractions for the drivers. Some of them create visibility problems. Some of them just make the whole right-of-way look pretty trashy. So we'd like some direction and discussion on where or what the expectations of staff is at this time.
You know, like election signs, we can't put those, you know, where they're putting their garage sale signs, right?
Right.
That's off limits. So I think everybody should be off limit to that area.
Now, the code also states that signs can be placed, small signs can be placed on private property with permission of the owner. So we don't really address those behind the sidewalk. But yes, you are absolutely correct. Anything between the sidewalk and curb is fair game as far as we're concerned. We just want to formalize that somehow. We do send out notices. It's on the website. It's within my newsletter that we will pick up signs if we come to that point. We're not necessarily going to, but we may. We do allow people to pick them up within a couple days at City Hall if they feel like they want them back. They tend to just post them again, so that can be kind of a problem.
I've seen them on stop signs.
Right.
They'll put
With the current technology, the current social network, I think there's a lot of other opportunities to advertise your yard sale or advertise your house for sale or whatever. There's plenty of other opportunities that does not need to include a sign on the street.
But what about like that antique shop on 8th Avenue that has their stuff on the parking?
They're also in violation of our code.
And what gets done about that? Because, one day it's there, one day it's not. The next day it's back. The next day it's not.
I just want to address that issue. That's the problem. We can make up all kinds of rules and regulations, but the simple matter is we don't have the ability to police the issues. Like we said, we're picking up signs when we can or when we get complaints, and people get smart. They don't put their address on it, so it just says garage sale this way. I mean, so we can make books full of regulations, but it won't matter if we can't enforce them.
How legal would it be to have a resolution or whatever that says any property located on the parking is fair game? Take it.
I think the other problem is the recourse that we have for processing a violation. Don can probably address that, but it's not easy. We can't go write a ticket. I mean, that would be nice, kind of, I guess.
Well, because there are a lot of places that'll, have a TV set or a chair or something on the parking and a sign that says free. Yeah. Well, I would just presume that anything that's on the parking is free.
I think Tom's right in the fact that at some point in time we may need to have some kind of official enforcement. But I think we can make a good dent in what we have because people don't want to continue investing in signs that get removed and get thrown away and that disappear. So whether that's a realtor sign or whether that's a garage sale sign, if there's at least a decent effort to pick them up, to dispose of them, to notify the owners when possible. We have a lot of business signs that the businesses are putting them out because they probably don't know about the regulation. We do try to notify them through email or phone call, and sometimes that will stop that company from doing it. I mean, we can make a pretty good dent from an unofficial matter. It's just whether council's going to enforce that, if council's going to make the support of that so that we don't, because we're going to have people coming in here and say, my sign disappeared, why did it go away? I think we're going to have these open house signs that are out for a week at a time. We don't tend to bother them if they go out on Friday and come back in on Sunday, but it's just gotten to be a lot of clutter, and I think that we need to take some recourse against it.
Yeah. The police department, we used to pick up the signs when we were over at the old building and put them back there, and it really made an impact for about a year and a half with the realtors. They came by, they voiced their concern about, did we have anything better to do, and so on and so forth, and we shared our position on that. But recently, we haven't had the time to get these and taken them in. It takes them a little more effort to come out there, but we are also challenged about how long, when we take property, how long we have to retain it before it becomes trash, and we can discard it. Some of these signs, as realtors, are quite expensive.
Sell them back to them.
I'm sorry?
Sell them back to them.
We have some challenges there too. So I personally would like to see a scheduled fine. Obviously, we're not going to go out there and cite and write people right away, but it would make it a lot easier to process these and to move forward with it. There's a lot of garbage out there, from garage sale signs to signs that are visible issues. But there should be really something that could be done at your direction.
Do you think, I'm sorry.
Well, that shop that's on 8th Avenue, I mean, that's just cluttered. I mean, it's full of stuff. And I think one time saying, it's free, you know, and stuff disappeared, I'll bet it wouldn't happen too often.
Do we have a regular program of education? I mean, there could be a certain number of people that just don't realize you can't put signs in the right of way, or what the right of way even means, or what it is. I mean, I think it's something that you can't just like one time put it on the website and say, well, we put it on the website. You know, it's got to be a constant reminder. You know, any signs that you put out has to be behind the sidewalk and with the permission of the owner of the property.
We usually try to do something in the spring. The planning department does, related to garage sale signs, and then garage sale. I think the Marion Times usually covers something in the spring regarding it. I don't know that it helps, but I agree. I think the marketing of it and a constant reminder of it's important.
I mean, it's got to be a regular reminder, I think.
I think the issue really
most people
before us
want to
today.
follow the rules.
Yeah, I think the issue really before us today is what Dan is asking in a nutshell is if we start to get more aggressive for enforcement of this, and citizens start showing up at the city council meeting with torches and pitchforks, are you going to be confident that you're going to support the staff in going out and supporting this? As I've said before, if we have ordinances in the books that the council's not willing to have the staff enforce, then we need to take them off the books.
No, it is our law. And ignorance of the law is no excuse, and but I think along with that, we should be doing more aggressive education and constant reminders of, maybe more in a more user-friendly way of, what it means and getting the word out. Even if we have to put it in every time in the messenger. Reserve a corner that says, reminder, this is where the signs can be put. Something, so that we're constantly working at reminding people at the same time that you're enforcing it. Then I think there's less excuse for people to say, well, we didn't know.
If there's an interest in going forward, we would put together an education program. We would put together Hiawatha and Robbins both commit time. They commit staff time to pick them up, and we don't do that. I think that Kesha and Nicole and I and some spend their lunch hours sometimes going out and picking them up because they don't feel like there's a support for committing 2 or 3 hours a week to go out and do that because they have other jobs to do, but they'd be willing to do that, but they're not sure that they should be doing it. So we're trying to get that direction. Do we want to formalize a pickup process? Do we want to formalize an education program? Do we want to move forward and educate the public and say, we don't want this to occur in Marion?
Right, and you do it, in a positive campaign kind of thing, keep Marion looking nice, and, help us keep Marion, looking good.
You know what the justification for that is, though? If I mow that parking, then I'll put anything on it that I want to. I mean, seriously. People don't, they mow the parking. If they don't, they get dinged by the city for not keeping the grass down. Just a thought.
Well, you will see some realtor open house signs primarily out there, and they're there for 6 hours or something. It's not like all weekend, and so you'd have to decide if you're not going to allow those as well.
Yeah, we would come back with a program. I'm not sure that, and it would be up to council, but whether we want to allow open house signs to be out there for 24 hours or 48 hours or something like that.
I can tell you, every single realtor in this area has been told at least once that they are not to put them in right-of-ways. In Cedar Rapids, Marion,
they're there though.
We know. We're told.
Yeah.
We're told to go knock on the door and get permission to put it in the actual yard and not in the right-of-way. So
there's plenty of places to do it. There's plenty of ways to deal with it. There's, it's so.
I think
Well, we'd like to come back with some kind of direction, a recommendation for direction from council, and we will, whether that's Amber or I or Nicole or Kesha or somebody or planning or engineering, we'll put something together and bring it back then for some confirmation, I guess.
As far as education?
We'll do education and how we're going to handle picking up signs, whether we dispose of them. We consider them abandoned if they're in the right-of-way. We're not quite as nice as police, I guess, but we do allow them to pick them up if they're here in a few hours or a day or so. But I think we need to address that, too, as whether they become trash and are disposable and whether they should be returned or not. So.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Could we also maybe consider, and maybe we've done this in the past, but is there a way we can maybe take a copy of the code and tape it to the sign so when it is returned, we can officially say they have been now given, so for those repeat offenders? I mean, I'm just trying to throw a positive spin on this as well too, but maybe if we gave them a copy of it and
we tend to make it pretty clear when they pick them up, not necessarily in writing, but yeah, I think we could do that.
I don't want to create more work. I'm just saying it may make more of an impact, because if we do decide to enforce it with some type of penalty of some sort of fine, civil type deal, I think we could then say we've done our due diligence of, especially the repeat offenders, but I just wanted to throw that out.
Or even attach some kind of ticket to it and leave the sign where it is, but say you are in violation of our code. And so then maybe then they'll learn, not to do it again. I don't know. Or other people might see that and then learn from that. I don't know. I hate for everybody to go around picking up signs. I think you have more important things to do,
Right. So we got to figure out who is going out to pick up the signs.
Yeah, and it may be that we can do an all-out education program, and maybe they'll quit being there, and we won't have to pick them up. But we'll have to see.
Yeah, I mean, once exactly in the future, it should be less and less.
Like I said, I
if you're
think
teaching people the correct way.
most people are law-abiding and want to follow the rules. I think once you tell them that this is the rule.
Well, it's one of those things. If my neighbor puts out a yard sale sign, why can't I? So one person does it, it leads to another person, another person.
But that's how you get to the point of people, well, everybody else is doing it, it must be legal.
Right.
But I think if we just keep reminding people this is not the law, I think you'll get most people to abide by it. Maybe I have too much, I'm too optimistic, I don't know.
We're way too cynical over here.
You guys are.
Okay, I think you have what you need, Dan?
I think I do,
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number
Next.
5 is again with the property at 3501 29th Avenue. Swiley's will be here on Thursday to hopefully get a decision from you, or at least they'll be wanting one. I think that within the Thursday agenda, we will have the prepare, hold harmless, direction to prepare, hold harmless. If you wish to add some participation financially, you'll have to amend that motion, or that we may do a resolution probably. Directing staff to participate in that financially. So,
Can we rather, in addition to calling it a hold harmless, can we call it an easement and hold harmless? So it's clear we're giving them an easement to use the property.
okay.
I mean,
You want that to be a temporary?
well, I mean,
easement, permanent
does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Well, hold harmless is
Protecting us, yeah.
it's just protecting us, but we're giving them permission to use a certain number of feet, right?
Yeah, the easement, in my mind, documentation directs what it's to be used for, and I'm not sure that the hold harmless really allows them to use it within the purview of what's stated on the request.
Well, you're going to allow them to put a fence if they want to, and also plant trees and those things. That's more than just being on the property. That's actually like taking care of it. And I think you'd want to document that the city is giving them that permission to possess the property, the 30 feet or whatever it is, but it still belongs to the city. They're going to hold us harmless, but it still belongs to the city. So there's nothing would ripen as far as a claim to the property.
We can do a temporary
I
easement.
don't know, but we can check with our legal counsel on that to see what he thinks. But
anything beyond a temporary easement, we would typically record, and those associated costs with that. A temporary, we don't typically record, which would be fine. We could handle that.
I think you'd want something recorded.
Okay.
That's my opinion, and not my legal opinion, because we have our lawyer here.
Let me get with Don before Thursday, and we'll figure out what we need to do.
Because I think you'd want something of record that this belongs to the city.
Well, I think you'd do a hold harmless, but in the event that the city requires the use of this property again, that anything that they have put on is, it's up to them to remove it after so many days of being notified.
We could also do a hold harmless that would expire in 12 months or 24 months or 48 months.
Well, if you did that and then they had to renew it every 24 months, I think that would be totally acceptable if they had the use of the property.
That way, if they're not taking care of it, then
if they
take it back. Or get rid
That
of
would
it.
help us in the fact that there have been cases where rights have been given to individuals, and the cities have had to actually pay to buy back even though they own the property because it's been used for a period of time. So
Squatting rights.
that happened with Lone Star over here on First Avenue, I know for sure. They actually had to buy back right away that they already owned from Lone Star. So City of Cedar Rapids did. So I don't know how unusual that case was, but I would suggest that we do a hold harmless with a renewal date on it.
I think that would be your saving grace.
But we can do an easement. Nick, I understand.
I'm not giving the city legal advice here, so.
Let me talk to Don. We'll come up with something.
What good are you?
Are there any questions about what the Swalleys want? Okay.
Well, whatever we do, I think make it clear that, it's a temporary right to use the property, and
we'll make sure Don makes that happen.
And the city can take it back at any such time as we need it, or can, take possession back.
Thank you.
Should it say something about if they put structures on it that they have to take them down?
And that the city would not participate in any kind of sharing cost of building a fence or shrubbery or anything like this, because just the fact that we are letting them use the property should be.
And the fact that I think maybe I agree with Nick too, and something probably should get recorded, because if they go to sell their property in a couple of years, and when the title gets,
you'd want that buyer to be on notice that this is not.
That's not yours. Property. And you may have to pay to take the fence down or whatever. So.
Anything else on that? Yeah, item number 6 was a request we got from Barb Prawl at Barb's Fine Arts. We did have a request that she was stating that there was damage to her sidewalk and her parking lot. We typically do not allow any of our construction equipment outside the right-of-way. We state that at our pre-con meeting. The inspectors are making sure that doesn't happen. Although if it would happen, it is the responsibility of the contractor. We push all that responsibility onto them. In this case, well, in all cases, we also take pre-project photos of all the adjacent properties just for instances like this. We did, in this case, take pictures, and I have compared post and pre-pictures, and I'm not finding, and I presented those in my report, I'm not finding any apparent damage to either the parking lot or the sidewalk. And I have emailed her and talked to her about that. So our recommendation is to not do anything with this request.
Question about that location. All the water damage and stuff like that that went on with this, with the roundabout. What is the extra costs incurred on that?
For water damage?
For the repair, relocation, whatever.
We've not had any expenses associated with water damage as far as surface water or rainwater. We have done some intermittent changes in the design to create some temporary storm sewer access on the south side of 7th Avenue that was not in the previous plans. A couple $1,000 maybe.
Of course, you're going to add that to when I ask for the full accounting, aren't you?
Those are all included. They're all payments to the contractor, and they're all included in our project cost.
What did Barb have to say when you told her that you didn't see any difference in the pictures?
Said she got the answer she expected, and said something about her knowing what her customers had been saying, and I did not understand that. So
did you send her the pictures?
Yes, I did. Both sets of pictures I sent to her. We did. I just expressed that from my view that I was looking for whether she wanted to continue with the claim or not. She never really stated that, so that's why we're here tonight still talking about it, because I did not apparently. She thinks there was damage still, it just was not visible in the photos. Currently there's, I have a photo somewhere, currently there's a trailer parked on the sidewalk right now with a fully loaded trailer parked on the sidewalk and the parking lot, so I don't know how that affects any future condition of the sidewalk either, but.
Her trailer?
Her trailer, I think it's hers, yes. The process for that would be for her to make a request to our small claims committee, and she's not done that, and she's welcome to do that, but she hasn't apparently done that, and I'm not recommending council do anything other than maybe let her do that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Your Honor, I have a question other than beyond item number 6. We'll call it 6.5. That same council meeting, we had the neighbor at 24th Street and 28th Avenue talking about the Miller house that had been moved there and how they're not, and I know you guys have had tons of problems, but I go by there at least once a day. Grass is a foot tall, and are we cutting it and billing them, or what in the world is going on? I was wrong in calling it grass. It's weeds that are, yeah. I mean, they really need to clean it up around there. I don't know what we're going to do with them because I know we've tried. But is a building permit forever?
No, the building permit is for 12 months, and then he can renew it again for another 12 months for $50. After that, then he has to renew it at full cost. Is that right, Gary? So we're moving through that process. I know that he's been addressed many times on all 4 sites as far as needing to not be in violation of our nuisance abatement and so forth. We're working through it the best we can with the ability we have.
Well, the 31st Street, 24th Avenue site has been mowed, because when I drove by there 2 days ago, the weeds were definitely down.
Yeah, 28th and 24th has not been mowed.
Okay.
I believe if I could, Paul, I believe the 31st Street site, that one he did receive a nuisance abatement letter for that one, but I'm not sure whether he did the mowing or our staff went out and did it. I don't know about the other one, though, if we've sent one out to them on that location.
Well, I feel for the lady who came to the meeting because she does really keep her house well maintained, and that's been a nightmare for them, I'm sure.
The 31st and 24th, that one has supposedly been sold. We haven't seen it go through yet. The contractor that Ken Spence owned that one, and he has since told us that he has sold that, so that one will be getting new permits for some reconstruction. They're going to tear off siding, redo the whole outside. So that one has been sold, so that one should not be much longer new permits were good for years, but hopefully this new contractor is a very reputable contractor, should take care of that pretty quickly, I would think.
Well, that's the one that's been mowed, so.
Yes.
Yeah, that house fit in there a lot better than
Yes,
the
it did.
one at 24th and 28th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom, before you get on with anything, the number 4, the Magid First Edition, did that sidewalk ever get settled?
Sidewalk.
Well, the sidewalk that
Assessment.
that was in contention, about being on the north side of Oak Brook, and there is a sidewalk behind those businesses, and
I
there's.
have to look unless you know. That's
The sidewalk is part of the sidewalk assessment program.
Right.
That was not removed from the project, so it is moving forward.
Well, how can you put a sidewalk there with that hill?
No, the sidewalk that we're putting in is along East Post Road that goes to the sidewalk on the south side.
But my understanding was that it was also going to go west and hook up with the sidewalk that is on the Menards property.
I think the portion on that portion of sidewalk, Tom can maybe answer that, it was probably going to be deferred as part of the process of building the new.
Because
we didn't talk about a sidewalk on the north side. It was just to provide access to the sidewalk on the south side that would take people to the.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we discussed about putting a
Because
sidewalk
it's such a deep, steep hill. You
Yeah,
can put it on top
that
of
did
the
come
hill,
up in our
but-
discussion that it's not feasible because of the.
Their sidewalk is part of the new senior housing going in there, but I think they're going to ask that to be deferred, if I remember right. But
Will the hill go away?
I'll have to take a look at it. I could look back on.
Will that hill go away with development along there? I mean, was that a buffer between?
No.
No, okay.
It might get cut down where the access point is, but that's about it. That's a private drive too. Oak Park.
Right.
Oak
that
Brook.
section is.
Yes. Moving on to the planning agenda. Number 2, I just want to bring up, it's a set date for public hearing. It's not starred, but it's Sunny Ridge Villas preliminary site development plan and final site development plan. I don't know if the council's heard much. I'm going to talk about it relative to some platting that's going on as well. But these are the apartments that are proposed. They're proposed out east of Highway 13. And they're the same apartments that are on Boyson Road. I think Mr. Draper has mentioned those just west of the drug town. Very same product. I was going to say similar, but it's the same product. So you drive west on Boyson, just past drug town, and
Abode.
AC's Abode built them.
Yeah. Those are very nice.
So Fusion designed them, and that's who's proposing this project. So anyway, I just want to bring that up. We're just setting date for the public hearing, but there's been, the Planning Commission had this come before them at the meeting last week, and there were quite a few people in attendance that were opposed to the buildings, and so if you get calls, that's the project. It's out east of Highway 13, so just so you're aware. The next item is the resolution approving Prairie Ridge Estates 7th edition final plat memorandum agreement, and this is also in the area. So this was kind of an eye-opener to the Planning Commission, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the area and then talk about the projects that are going to be coming down the line related to the area. So this is Highway 13, Vernal Road, 29th Avenue intersection right here. So these are this location of where Mirage has been putting the apartments in out there, and the mixed-use buildings going on the corner, just for reference. So Prairie Ridge Ave, Mountain View and Scottview Meadows or Manor, and then Casina. This property was originally platted in the early 2000s, maybe even before, maybe in the late 90s before I came here. It's been revised several times, the preliminary plat. Eldon McMillan, whom Mary Lou and Paul recall, I'm sure, platted this property. He's since passed away. But we've been working on this plat for many years. It's pretty large, as you can tell. This is, I forget how many lots there are, but there's a lot of lots involved in this plat. It's a two-piece plat. As the property is developed, you can see where the red lines represent the portions of the preliminary plat that have not been final platted. So there's no houses on those lots. Except for in here, you've had a little bit of work. But the aerial where you can see through it really is developed out. If you drive out there, there's a lot of dead-end streets that go nowhere. But there is a longer range plan to that, and it's all included in the preliminary plat. So if you come out Casina and go west and go north, it stubs, a street stubs. And then you continue to go east, it kind of wanders down through the south side. It's really following the sewer to provide the development for the housing. We've actually provided or required that they stop building homes in this area because they have too many homes for fire access, and so we've got limitations on how far they can go with one way in, one way out. So a lot of the neighbors that have moved there may or may not know that there's a larger plat that is being developed around this, and if you just moved to the area, you'd probably wonder what is going on. So the city does have a plan for what's going on. It's been documented, and it's being developed. What's occurring now is some of this ground is starting to sell. Tim Mooney's buying some of the property, and we'll be bringing in some plats for this area. This location here, it's just east of Bisencourt. This is the location for the project that I just showed you, the Sunny Ridge Villas. So there'll be 4 of the 12 plexes going in here. There's a parcel or a final plat on the agenda to split this piece to make room for another senior housing apartment building out here. And then this piece will be retained by or sold to Tim Mooney also for final platting for future development. So it's just going to be a plat at this point. We don't have a project. The area is currently zoned out here. It's a planned development residential. And I don't know how many in the council recall, but there was a site development plan provided for that entire area when the Marion Churches folks owned it, and that's who's selling it. That provided for a number of senior housing apartments, condominiums, and just different complexes. With the sale of this property, there's going to be the requirement that they bring back the preliminary and final site development plan. So that's what you'll see some hearings set to make sure that the neighborhood knows what's going on out there. Many of them will not know what was originally planned, I can almost assure you. So there'll be a lot of questions, I'm assuming, when we go to have the public hearings on the projects.
How many entrances and exits are there?
Well, the beauty of what's going on is that a very key piece to the puzzle is, so right now you've got this access point serving this area. Mm-hmm. And you've got this access point serving this area. with the plating coming through, we're going to make a connection here. So now you've got your two exits here and here serving all this area. So if something's going on back here, emergency access is blocked here, you'll be able to come up Casino and go north. So that's very critical to what.
How difficult is that going to be for the fire department? If they have to, an emergency type run or a fire, an accident, whatever.
Well, that's what we're addressing. Right now, it's a problem.
Right now, it's,
A major problem. So
with this road, it will greatly improve our response.
Okay.
that's why I want to paint the picture for you why this is.
Okay.
There's just a lot of background on it. There's been a lot of conversations over the years, so it's just a little.
That's my question. Where's the school site on that?
So there is a
School there.
site here. This area, Loomer Dostal owned, I believe, this piece. He owned the 80. This was 80 acres, I think. So he owned this farmstead, and then he donated some ground for park and school property. I forget the exact layout. I don't recall it right offhand. And a water well site. So, and that's you're seeing kind of the outlines of some of the parcels. There was a larger development plan attached to that. So, you can see the sewer for that area will run up in this way. So you're not going to see much development out here until some of this starts to break loose.
Tom, Eldon had never plotted those red lots?
They've been preliminary platted. So the final plats have not been brought in, so the infrastructure associated with them has never been completed. Once you have a preliminary plat approved, and you do one final plat addition for that preliminary, it's locked in.
Okay.
So unless that is amended, that will be the layout that we will see out there. Even though it's been 20 years, and we may not necessarily 100% agree with they have a vested right to develop in that manner once the preliminary plat's approved and one final plat. Our code establishes that within the subdivision regs.
Where's the city boundary? Can you see it on that map, or is it?
I thought you might. I think we went out to this edge here.
Right there. Okay.
So we're here, down, over, down.
Okay.
Bloomer brought that in as a part of the project for donation, or for the donation property. So the final plat that you see is a portion of this property, number 5. So Mooney Ingle Land Company's bought and is going to be platting a portion of that property. So I'll just show you. You guys have the staff report, but essentially this area here is being final platted. So this redlined area is this area. So that's going to so that means the road will go in soon. So with the approval of the final plat, they'll start that work. They may wait till the crops are out. I don't know.
We could ask that other north-south road be connected as well when they plat the next thing to the east. Yeah, that little curly road up there, right there where your finger. Could we not have a street there as well?
Go this way?
No, north and south.
Right there.
Yeah.
I don't think this is under the same owner. This has never been platted. Not
It
included.
would give fire 2 ways to go north, though,
Correct.
out of.
Yeah. Ideally, this property would sell and start to get this type of a connection going. But the way that we make that happen is through final platting. When someone brings a final plat in, they can say, I only want to do these 10 lots, and we say, no, you need to go and make a connection. That's like on the other side of the street here where we're talking about that connection to 29th Avenue, the need to get that accomplished with the final plat. So anyway, so number 5, which is starred, is that final plat.
So hold on, the northern red box, that has not been purchased. It's still
I don't know
farmland.
I don't know who owns it, but there's no development of this piece being proposed at this time. But I wanted you guys to see that there is a plan for it and that something is approved, and
Right now, it's just the apartments, and then what Mooney is.
Correct.
This number 5.
I think Mooney Engel they've purchased what's left over.
They've purchased
as
all
I
that.
understand.
Okay.
Yep. And including on the other side here.
Right. But nothing there for now.
Correct.
Okay.
Sorry, there's just a lot of things going on in that area, and I just thought it'd be good to have a little update for council on that. Item number 6, Squaw Creek Meadows. This is another area that's been final platted for quite some time. Grand Avenue, 31st Street, it's 100. The area is highlighted in red, and it's pretty straightforward final plat. It's just a simple cul-de-sac coming down off Grand. So you can drive out there, that road's in. Improvements have been made. They didn't post any surety, so they went ahead and made the improvements. As soon as the final plat's approved, they can start selling lots.
What's happening to the east of that? Is that all wetland?
No, there's some zoning that would support commercial opportunities in that area. There are a lot of wetlands. There's a lot of lowlands. There's some issues that they'll have to deal with as that comes through. We've seen some tentative layouts, but nothing formalized has come through.
But it's commercial.
They are filling in there, but we're making sure that they do not disturb the wetlands.
In a lot of dirt, yeah, piles of dirt there.
The fact that we're going through a bunch of final plats is good news. That means people are selling lots, just so the council's aware. Number 8's not starred, but that's going to be the second consideration on the Perry development on south side of 6th Ave, just so you know. Number 9, we'd like to remove that, and this is a resolution of necessity for the side pass related to Prairie Trail. First edition, this is up off Albernet Road. We wanted some time to talk with Skogman Homes regarding this. We want to make sure that we're all on board with what's being proposed and they have knowledge of what we're talking about. Number 10 should have been starred, but this is, I just wanted the council to be aware, and you received it in your packet, that the BPAC is making a recommendation to move forward with the paving of the Lindale Trail. As you know, if you go out Lindale and you go west on the trail, it's asphalt. If you go east, it's paved. And I think there was a desire just for them to go on record to show that that's something that they're supporting and would like to see move forward.
How much?
What's that?
How much?
I do not know.
It's just a recommendation.
Just a recommendation. Number 11 is a discussion regarding the alley for seating behind Ramsey's Metro Market. We received the request at the last meeting, and I think there was we received the request. We're wanting to know if there's any desire to move forward with the review of that. We can have TAC take a look at it to see if the road, it's an active alleyway. So you can go drive your car down it now, so I don't know that we want to go put tables, chairs out there. So if we want TAC to review that, if we don't want to review it, just leave it active and not worry about it right now. We're just looking for some direction on how to communicate back with Mr. Ramsey.
How much parking goes on back there?
No parking.
No parking?
It's an alley.
It's a through alleyway. Oh, you mean off the alley?
Yeah.
But it's got its own.
I don't think anyone.
There's a parking lot right there,
Yeah.
but that has access off of
Behind the buildings, I don't.
Sorgs.
Yeah, because they used to pull in behind Sorgs.
Well, that has its own access, though.
The only way to really do it would be to vacate the alley. And I think if you want us to look at that, I can tell you that it's probably not going to be popular. I mean, but TAC can bring back a recommendation to the council for consideration if you like.
So if they wanted to buy it, they could, right?
Well, there's vacation and there's sale. There's two different things. If vacate it for public use means you can't drive up and down it anymore. Sale would be the sale.
Well, by putting tables and chairs up, that kind of limits who can drive up and down the alley.
That's what he's wanting to know if the city's, essentially what he's asking is if the city supports vacating it so he could do tables and chairs out there.
Not unless there's...
So unless there's action from the council sending it to TAC for a recommendation, the assumption would be that we're not going to do anything. So
I would like to see the council review all the other two that are blocking the sidewalk annually. And if we do this, that as well. You know, we've given permission from Ramsey's and to Campbell Steel, and we never heard anything after that first year, the second year. And I'd like to see that come here on an annual basis.
There have been complaints because I've heard them that you can't walk two abreast on the sidewalk, that you have to go single file because you can't get through if you don't.
So I'll bring back something on that, and then
Did you say that they cars can drive down that alley by Ramsey's back?
yeah.
You can? I didn't know that. It seems
Some
so narrow.
can. I don't know that all can, but yeah.
I've seen cars driving it lately, recently.
Oh, yeah, you can drive.
I don't think it's really being used. I think we should look at it.
Yeah, TAC can bring back
Yeah.
recommendation on it, but that's up to the council.
Vacating it?
Well, just, what is his proposal, just to use it? What is he?
Well, I don't think selling it should ever be in the.
No, I don't know, what was his
in the
proposal, just to.
I personally don't think we ought to put tables and chairs there if cars have access. You know, it's one or the other.
On H1, discussion regarding uptown parking, is that the parking lot there? Is that what we're discussing? 'Cause if that parking lot gets put in there,
That's over here. That would not change this alley, though.
but I'm saying if this turns into parking here, and the alley basically doesn't get used there anymore.
Well,
Like it was just indicated that the policy for outdoor seating does provide for applications within public alleyways as well as public right-of-ways. So let's take a look and bring that back for further analysis.
Okay.
How about that?
So Louis, their outdoor park or in the alley.
They own that alley.
They own that alley. How did they get that alley?
Good question.
A long time ago, they bought it.
They own the area adjacent to the alley. They don't. There's still an alley there.
No, they own the
Louis?
alley.
Between Giving
north
Tree and Louis,
of Louis.
Yeah.
where they've got that fenced off and you can't go back there.
Between
that
between
little
the
alley.
theater and
Yeah, that hasn't been
The
an
city
alley for a
sold
long
them the
time.
alley.
east-west.
The city, okay.
We want it back.
Sorry. Next.
Number 12. This is a public hearing. We talked about this at the last meeting during the set date, but just to refresh everybody's memory. So this is related to the Lebeda site.
It's those two little pieces of property. You don't sell them now.
So 7th Avenue here, the building that's going up here, there'll be a parking. There's a planned second building. When we started talking about this project, it was contemplated that this piece to the rear would be sold to the owner here as a part of the redevelopment of the project. The right-of-way line for the new 6th Avenue would be established here. So the city owns to here along this curved radius. So there becomes this stranded little piece of property that we want to see developed and become taxable and be a part of a project. The indication that's been made is that we would work with them on making that a part of that property. This is the public hearing regarding that sale. Mm-hmm. The way that it's being proposed to be sold is to be a value established that will be reflected in the tax increment financing agreement for the project in the future. So this is the process to actually sell the property, and then we'll account for the cost to sell it, which was established at where'd it go? It's like $12,000, $11,309. So that'll be reflected in the TIF development agreement as a benefit to the property owner as a part of the redevelopment. So at a date in the future prior to occupancy, we will get a final plat, and at that time, we will get the blue area on the front dedicated to the city as a part of 7th Avenue. So it's basically a land exchange is what's going on. But on Thursday will be the public hearing regarding the sale of city-owned property. So basically the sale of this piece will be on the agenda for discussion. And there'll be a public hearing regarding that. Building looks pretty nice.
Since we're talking about the building, I had someone ask me the other day why it's so close to the road. Do we not have setbacks in Marion, is what I was asked.
Well, we're actually encouraging buildings to be set a little closer to the road.
May give it the feel of uptown?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. Won't happen every time, but that's the direction we're looking for.
I remember Mr. Movies that had to be moved.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions on that?
And in this case, just to flush that out a little further, that was actually deliberate on Levitas' part. With the type of merchandise that they sell, they're not a high retail turnover store, and he always has a concern about having what appears to be an empty parking lot out in front of the store for people that drive by. So by having the building be the front and all the parking in behind, he doesn't really have to contend with that. Because I asked him that question on the site plan.
Makes sense. Used to have to park in front of a building when I worked retail years ago, so that looked like the building was full when it was busy.
Yep.
Perception.